Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 24th meeting of the Finance Committee meeting. I call the meeting to order. Everybody is present. Mr. Morial, Mr. Price, Reverend Benson, and myself. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next, I need a motion to approve the April 26th minutes.
So moved.
Kathy, I wasn't present.
Okay. Can I have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. 3-0. Okay. Next up is the school nutrition meal prices.
Good morning. I'm going to share the presentation that was loaded into board docs. So as many of you, I think, probably know, you are experiencing some increases in food costs. We just wanted to come to you all and share some information. The last several years, due to the COVID pandemic, we have been allowed to serve meals to all students for free. The waivers that were allowed for us to be able to do that have expired, and they will expire as of June 30th. We'll be able to continue those free meal services through the Read to Achieve camps that we have, and we're working through Summer Bridge so we can provide meals as well over the summer for any of the camps that we're offering. But those reimbursements will no longer be for next year. So one of the challenges that it's going to present is now that we are catching back up, we're 2 years since we've, I guess, we had to do free and reduced meal applications, and it's going to have an impact, as well as the revenue generated from a lot of the supplemental sales that students purchase outside of meals. So helps increase the revenue so they can offset costs and expenses in school nutrition. So the average cost to produce a meal is $4.28. As you all know, labor costs have increased, and the state provides us some information on where they want to see your labor cost and when you do your meals per hour. And they want you to be at 40%. Right now, we're at 49.5%, and a lot of that is due to the increases in salaries and benefits over the last couple of years. Plus, the cost of goods has also increased. I provided some information here that I got working with school nutrition on the average percent increases for proteins, fruits and vegetables, just general operations. And we do know that they're going to still be probably increases as we move through the year. We've taken steps to try to control that. They are very good stewards and review their expenditures. They, always are bidding their products. They look for any way they can leverage any of their money to purchase things that are North Carolina grown. They assess how many meals are being produced in each cafeteria to ensure that they don't have too many people on staff, but they have enough to produce the meals that they're serving, and make those adjustments as necessary to try to help manage their costs and be as efficient as they can be.
Yeah. So just so everybody can understand that maybe listening, that school nutrition program is much like the after-school program. It's a enterprise fund, meaning that we make money not on the regular lunches, but on the add-ons that would help offset all the labor costs and things like that. Correct, Shauna?
Correct. We do get federal reimbursements for some meals to help subsidize, but those reimbursements are nowhere close to being able to cover the full cost of what it takes to produce those meals.
So over the couple years where we had to, where the federal government required us to have free lunch, how are we paying for the school nutrition program?
There's a couple of different things that have gone on there. The reimbursements for those meals were also at a higher rate. That reimbursement will now go back to pre-pandemic and the normal process that they of reimbursements that we would qualify for. So we've been able to manage a lot of what the additional costs have been versus that higher reimbursement rate. They do have some operating capital. There has been some legislative changes that we are to make sure that they have at least 2 months of operating capital before we can assess any indirect costs. So, you know, the power, the gas, just the processing of payroll and all the administrative things that go along with running that program. So we do work with them. They have had a fund balance for a while and have been using that when they need to cover their costs. But we're actually, once I go through the rest of this, I will also review with you all. We're at a point now that to balance their budget and to cover the costs to produce meals and to serve the students in Union County, the district's going to need to probably put in another probably more like $2 million into their budget this year for them to balance.
Okay, so there's no more fund balance for the school nutrition program, correct? Okay.
Their fund, but I can't, if they have 2 months worth of operating capital, they may have some when we end this year.
Okay.
But when we go into next year, that will be exhausted.
And we're going to have to put in $2 million to shore it up.
We've run some assessments. They've made adjustments for participation, thinking they may or may not have, there may be some reduction in the participation in the program just because of the fact that it's no longer free. Yep. Okay. So the recommendation for breakfast for all grades is $1.75. The rate this year would have been $1.35 for breakfast. Elementary and middle school lunches, the recommendation is $3.75. The rate this year, or the meal price this year, would have been $2.60. And high school lunches at $3.85, and they would have been at $2.70 this year.
Okay.
So overall, it's about a 41.5% increase over what that rate would have been this year.
What's the last time we increased costs or the
meal price? We did do an increase. We were increasing incrementally in 1920, right before the pandemic. At that time, it was $2.40 for middle and elementary and $2.50 for high school.
Okay. Is there any change to the federal program for reduced and free lunches? Those will be the same, same level, same.
Yes, but we do have, the economy, or not the economy, the salaries all around us have been increasing. So I have some concern on the qualifiers for the income qualifiers that may.
That's what I'm asking. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, as far as I know, they've not changed any of the threshold information of what you would qualify for to account for any of those salary increases that have been that we have seen, all around us.
And we put that online now, right? That
what?
The free and reduced lunch.
So we do have a plan. Free and reduced applications, you can't start until July 1st, completing those. Once we have approval from the full board on these new rates, we will also order paper applications to help assist where needed. But we have some strategic plans to provide supports, especially in our Title I schools during their parent nights or open houses, to be there on staff to help facilitate some of this and help just with the understanding of the impact of filling out these forms and wanting, parents and families to be eligible for other services that may be,
the hardest for us has always been the middle and high schools, correct?
Right. So if just depending on if we can get the families in those Title I schools and elementary school, that'll also help our middle and high. Another thing that is part of this equation is pre-pandemic, we had 6 schools that were community eligible. So they all got free reduced. That's a 5-year renewal that we do on those applications. Of those 6 schools, 5 will no longer qualify. So we will only have 1 school that qualifies for free and reduced. So that is, we've met with all those principals and again, have come up with strategies and ways that we can help try to facilitate, because those families haven't been filling out applications either. So that 5-year renewal will have an impact.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's not good.
So really the demographics, you know, in our county are changing slightly. And I really think some of it has to do with, like we were just discussing about hourly rates and the increase in wages, and just what those qualifiers are.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the, so how do we compare to other districts? There's another question.
So there are some Google Sheets being shared amongst the districts. The challenge is there's a lag in the update of that information until boards approve those rates. But from what we've seen on what has been approved, similar size districts and similar to around us are in that 3 to 375 range for their increases.
Any questions? Okay. So we need a motion to send this to the full board.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, sorry.
No. I was multitasking, trying to get it all done. What does our nutrition folks say?
I mean, are you asking for Denise to weigh in on?
Oh, yeah.
She's on, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear, from her and, how she feels about all of this.
Well, it's been very concerning, and as the year went on, I kept Mr. Moore and Shauna updated on where we were and what was going on and what we were seeing. This spring really hit home to what was going on with the expenses with our food vendor telling us they would not renew, making us go out to bid. We had to go out to bid on beverage and ice cream. Everything that would come across all year long would be new force majeures with prices going up. So as we saw the finances of payroll increasing and then our food costs going up, we were very concerned. I did speak yesterday with some people from the National School Nutrition Association. They're pretty much telling us that we cannot expect that there will be a reprieve, that they will come back and say that there will be all free meals. So we had to start really looking at where we were, what was going on with the loss of the CEP schools. We just knew that we cannot meet the needs of the program and try to keep the program going with what the reimbursement rates were going to be and with the increase of all the costs. It was very much something that we worked on for a while, looked at. I even woke up one night going, have I figured this right? Came back in the next day, redid everything again before bringing this final to you. It's not something that we wish we could continue with universal free meals. It's something that we worked for years, but unfortunately we do not have control of that. So now we just want to still continue to give our students high quality meals and to make the program sound as we can so that the district doesn't have to put any more money into the program than they have to, which is always our goal, and just meet the needs of our students.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The other comment I wanted to make is I just want to reiterate the importance of getting as many of our families in our Title I schools to complete that application.
Yes.
That is something that the failure to do so not only impacts school nutrition, but can impact Title I funding. which is also a big concern that I have. So we do have a comprehensive plan. We're going to work with our ELL department also to be on site in our schools with IT and technology to help families go through the process of completing the application online. We'll be making home visits as we need to make sure that families understand what's available for them, and really want to have a big communication and marketing plan across the district beginning July 1. So that is something I just wanted the board to know, that we are taking that very seriously and are going to put boots on the ground this summer to get that going before the start of the school year.
Okay. If I hear no other questions, I need a motion to send this to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it
4-0. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the contract proposal for Pepsi Bottling Ventures.
So as Ms. Lamar also mentioned, they have had to go out on several of their and rebid a lot of theirs with a lot of their vendors to try to get the best pricing. Plus they have experienced some on the rollover side, which we have some of those as well, that they supported, or they received information from these vendors on why their rates are going, why the prices are going up. You know, and there was some concern too that the word is some vendors aren't rebid. Like if you were to go out to bid, you may get a higher price, or you may not get the responses that you're looking for. There's some out there that aren't even bidding on school nutrition services at this point.
Oh, this is the Pepsi one.
Right.
So this is less. So before we had Coca-Cola, and this is actually a little bit less than what we were paying for that one.
So some of them have worked out, right?
That one worked out. Yep. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, so I do have a question.
Yeah.
So I see the bid analysis. I see where Coca-Cola is, you know, probably 1.5, if not more, the price of what Pepsi's coming in at for the, it looks like for the main bid, for the cafeteria piece of it. But then I see Vending, they have way more commissions that they get. So how does that, like, what does the total picture look like? Are you able to kind of put that together in one figure? Like the 5-year figure?
That's, I don't have. Denise, do you have something that you put together in a?
No, when it comes to vending, it really depends on how many machines the principals are gonna allow in the buildings. We're very restricted on when the product we can put in there. It is, these are all very low calorie drinks. So we'll have to see how the students like the new change and the flavor profiles that are presented. So we'll have to watch it this first year to see how the pricing is coming in and how the revenues are actually coming in. So it's not a cut item that you can look at, because there's a lot of factors that will go into how the kids participate in the vending.
Okay, so I mean, should we base the decision based on the cafeteria sales? Because that's a factor. Is that kind of the guidance that you're giving?
When it comes to federal bids, it is by the bottom line. And so we use the same average of projected sales to come up with the winner of the products. So they're very cut and dry on what we can do and what we can't do. So as we did the analysis, Pepsi was who came to the top, especially offering those higher commission rates than what we had been getting with Coke. Coke had already taken an increase on us this year. But when they came back, they just didn't come back with any increase. Pepsi really wanted the business. So we're hoping that just having some new flavor profiles will help offset or increase that participation. We'll just have to see.
Okay, I think I was misinterpreting. So the commissions are actually coming to UCPS, not us paying out from sales, right? So the higher rates, okay, so it's a win-win. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
So
Appreciate
the
it.
money comes back to us. Yes.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. So I need a motion to send the contract proposal for Pepsi Bottling Ventures to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 4-0. Next up is the Hershey Creamery Company proposal.
Sorry. As Denise mentioned, they went out for rebid on their ice cream bid, and this is the lowest responsive bidder.
And this is an increase from last year, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
A substantial one. About $30,000 more. Does anyone have any questions?
Is that increase part of all of the total chaos that's going on with the increases all around, or something else?
It's
So it's
the world we live in right now.
the
Okay.
market we're in.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to send it to the full board.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next is the dairy milk contract.
So this is one you're used to seeing the rollover bids come through about this time of year. But again, there were some increases to this. Denise and her team did receive supporting information for the increase to the rollovers. And again, the unknown of a rebid, and they had heard that several of the milk vendors were not bidding on school nutrition. So this is the recommendation, is to roll over with this increase with the information that they received that support it.
Any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to send this to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, thank you. Next is the Hartley vending contract.
And this one is just a rollover with no change.
Need a motion to send this to the full board if there's no questions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, thank you very much. Next is budget amendments and transfers.
Okay, so I do have budget amendments and transfers this month. As you all remember, we didn't approve, or we really didn't have a state budget, and you all approved the budget resolution in February. So these are the changes since that time. The first state amendment that you'll see, a lot of that has to do with just the adjustments that we received throughout the year. As you can see, there have been several.
So I have a question.
Questions about
Oh,
any
sorry.
of them?
I have a question.
Mhm.
State textbooks, decrease of 1 million, where does that money go?
So when you see the changes on the state textbooks, so you take out, it's a transfer. So when it goes from the textbook account, it goes to a different account for us to use. The only way we can transfer textbook money is to move it from 130 to 131 so that you can use it to purchase like software and books that are not at the state warehouse.
Okay,
So it's still for books.
okay. Does anyone else have a question on the first page? No? On the next page, can you explain this to me? Oh, it's the subtotal from it's the same one. Okay. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Okay, forget it.
So the first 2 pages are the state amendments.
And then feds.
Then we move on, are there any questions about that? I'll move on to federal. The federal funds, really, you can see there's some additional grant funds that we've received and just the normal changes within those accounts. So, any questions?
No.
All right, so in your capital, we did receive the grant funds for Piedmont High School.
Okay.
And then we do have some funds that we budgeted for the purchase of some of the vans that you all have seen, that transportation had fund balance funds that they could budget for that. Then our special revenue fund, which is just a lot of times grants or miscellaneous accounts. You can see we've got some funds that have come in for some grants at our schools and just different other contributions that we've received. And then finally, we have one transfer. This transfer is the restart transfer. I bring this to you every year. We're given a total from DPI, and we make all the movements to move the funds to the schools that are restart schools.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Any questions on that? If not, I need a motion to send this to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right,
4-0, thank you. Okay, next up for information is the COVID relief funding update.
And really, I don't have any changes from last month when it comes to any new accounts. I believe we've shared all that information on the front page. Plus, if you have, again, you can go out and see all the updated expenditure information.
So we have about 40 some million still left for ESSER, right? Do we have things that are supposed to be, is it encumbered yet? Are we knowing what we're going to use the 40 million for, or how is that coming?
So, you all or I guess technically this month in May, you approved some allocations of ESSER dollars to support some specific initiatives. Plus, we still have in October, we will be paying out the second retention bonus, right? And we will also be supporting any overages in any summer programs. We still have funds allocated to offset. There won't be enough in the summer program bridge account or CTE or even Read to Achieve camp. So we'll be offsetting using those as well.
Okay.
So our ELL department, you all approved that previously. So, those are really about the only things that we don't like there wouldn't be encumbrances probably on the balances that you saw previously.
And we have till 2040 to use the money, right?
Right, on some of these funds. So there's several of the accounts that at the end of this year, June, will be exhausted. The initial CARES Act, which is ESSER 1, that 163 account, all of those from 163 to 170 expire this year. And our goal is to have those done by June 30th. Which we're pretty close. There'll be a few things that maybe are being used over the summer, but it's just easier to be done in June. And then once we finish out this year as well, the 171 account, which is ESSER, was the first round of ESSER 2 funds. Original allocation, I believe, was right at 17 million. Those funds will also be pretty well zeroed out. So we'll be operating off of ESSER 3 for the next 2 years.
Okay, which is the bulk of the money right now. Okay, so I have a question that a couple county commissioners have asked us this, and I just want to be clear about it. The state and counties can use their ESSER, or they call it ARPA funds, any way they want. They believe that we have that capacity as well. They also talk about $10 million that we can use it any way we want. So why don't we do that? So can you talk to that?
I'm not sure what 10 million they're speaking about. All of the funds that we've received for any of the COVID relief money goes from the state through the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education writes all the applicable policies, plus they actually give us a chart of accounts. So if they give you an account that's, for instance, we do have one that was for health services, I believe. I'm not exactly sure how they worded it, but that would have been for mental health or nurses. Well, they give you like maybe 4 account codes and they tell you you can spend it on a contract. So that's what you can spend it on. You can't use it for salaries or anything else. So they pretty well narrow down for consistency across the state what you can and can't use those funds for.
I was told that that the first $10 million we can use it any way we want. So that is not true.
I don't even know what
That means. Okay.
Yeah, we've not received, there were some funds even at the very beginning that ran through our state account that were in a state funded account that we still had criteria on. I mean, they still tell us what we can and can't spend it on. So there's always an application process that you submit. Anytime you make budget changes, they have to approve them. So there's not really, and they have to match up to what the goals are. We have our ESSER 3 funds require 20% to be dedicated to learning loss. So we have to keep up and track those expenditures to ensure we can meet compliance requirements. So there's a lot of monitoring that goes on with our money. I'm not really sure how theirs is monitored, if it's just their audit team, but our auditors monitor it, as well as the NC Pro. You know, there's an office, a pandemic relief office that monitors, plus DPI monitors. So we have multiple agencies reviewing and looking at everything we spend these funds on.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
quick question. Ms. Shauna, is there, we live in a world of documentation. Is there a document that we can produce that outlines this, that we could share with the county just to put a closure to this thing?
I mean, on DPI's website, they have a COVID relief policy manual, allotment policy manual. It goes through every code and every what's eligible. So, you know, that's what we reference. And the chart of accounts is out there if you wanted to, like, they could pull it down and look at any one of them to see what's eligible. I don't know. I had some discussion last week with Beverly, and I'm not sure they quite knew that that was the case. I think they have the ability for the county commissioners to approve funds and within some broad parameters, and they're not limited as we are. That's why we have so many accounts.
So Shauna, if you'll do us a favor, just send the members of the finance committee a link to the DPI website that has the chart of accounts. Oh, you do? Okay.
We have that. It's on the document
Yeah.
for the COVID funding at the bottom, and it's highlighted.
But I will also link to where several of those things are listed on the DPI site.
But if they ask the question, oh, sorry, go ahead, Reverend Benson.
No, I was just going to say, thank you, Dr. Houlihan, for chiming in. But why not just send that to Ms. Beverly as well, or to the commissioners, that link, and then say this is where we get our instructions from. This way, there's some documented mechanism in place where they can go and see, and these questions can cease from coming.
If that's what you all would like me to do, I'll be glad to.
I mean, that would just, here's where we get our instructions from. Here's the link.
Shauna, I would recommend that you go ahead and send that information to Beverly and maybe copy the county manager on that and the deputy, and maybe ask that they share that with the county commissioners as they choose.
I do think it's confusing that
Well, it is very confusing, and unless you, it would require, there should be some questions. I mean, if you're not in this, and, you know, we've talked a lot about school business, and school finances are very complicated. So, you know, it should provide some clarity, or at least provide them where we're getting a lot of what we, you know, present to the public, and what we are trying to explain, where those.
I had read an article about the funding of ESSER and of ARPA and all that kind of stuff. That the state and the counties can do what they want with the money, but the schools are dealing with a different animal. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Shauna, kind of on that same topic, a couple of commissioners have asked for financials and maybe the lack of financials that we're supplying them over the last several months. When do you foresee that resuming, both for this committee and for our county commissioners?
You know, we're still working through. I had a meeting yesterday with the School Business Modernization Office. We're having some issues. We have current tickets out there right now. A lot of the report functions that can report functions, due to the amount of data that it's pulling, is giving us runtime errors. So we're having some challenges pulling that information in. I've provided that detail with county staff so that they could communicate it. And I did get a request from Mr. Williams as well that I responded to, just to let him know is my goal is to be able to start that back up next year. But at this point, we don't have any resolution. We were on a call for over an hour yesterday. And again, it has to do with the amount of data and the amount of transactions that the information is trying to pull in. We're having to piece together and do it. It's taking a lot longer. So I don't have the ability that I had previously to just drop in reports.
So I understand maybe the reports that we were sending, we don't have the capability of sending, but what reports could we send in lieu of that? I mean, what are we sending the county right now on a monthly basis? Anything?
No.
Yeah, that's.
We've talked to them numerous times about the challenges because right now I'm also running in two systems. So we're bringing data in from one system from payroll, and I've got this other system that I'm using for our general ledger expenses. And I think, you know, there was some understanding that we are in a transition, and, you know, we're doing the best we can to pull this information together. And my concern is just the fact that because we're bringing things in from multiple systems, we're spending a lot of time vetting and reviewing that information, and my level of confidence in that being posted publicly and it being taken as, you know, on a brand new system, meshing all this information together, I just have some concerns with it being part of their board public information. And what if something was off and I missed it because I'm trying to get all this stuff together to provide them? I definitely couldn't meet the timeline that they have in the originally by the 10th business day. So we've had a lot of discussion about that.
To Mr. Todd's, Mr. Price's point, again, these commissioners have mentioned the fact that, well, the county manager has mentioned about offering help with this merger. Where are we on that? Is that something that they're saying that they have people that have gone through this merger that could help us facilitate this merger, I guess from their perspective, in a more timely manner? Is that something that you and your staff looked at and determined that that's not a benefit? How did that turn out?
Honestly, the way they do business and the system, the way they utilize it, some of the challenges that we're having are more about the communication with DPI, pulling data from multiple systems. It's not necessarily about the usage of the system. We have very different operations, as we just discussed. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about that, and I've gone through some of that with Beverly. I just think we're at a point right now, because of being one of the first to do this in the state and the largest, that it's just some challenges that are part of the growing pains of doing an ERP conversion. And so we're working with state agencies as well as our vendor to try to resolve some of this.
So is the county understanding all this issue? Are they now backing off of asking for these, or they still want them right now?
I haven't had staff reach out to ask for them. I think previously that a few commissioners may have reached out to you all individually. And so we've had those, Dr. Houlihan and I have had those conversations with them, and I believe they understand the challenge that we're currently in.
So staff hasn't contacted you about it since you sent that email?
Mm-mm.
Just the commissioners, okay.
And just so I can close the door, you're saying we're the first in the state, but then they said that they have people that have gone through this transition. So are the transitions that they went through and we're going through different, or is it the same kind of transition?
No.
Just the fact that for them to do it was one way, but for us to do that same kind of transition is a whole nother way.
Right. Their transition was really just within themselves, right?
Mhm.
They converted their software to this software. Ours transition is about multiple communication links that have to go in and out of here for reporting purposes that we're required to do on a monthly basis. And there's been some challenges with some of that. So when I say we're the first in the state, the requirements we have for how we report salaries, how we have licensure checks, how we have to meet state salary schedules, and there's overpaid, underpaid, how we've paid retro. There have been a lot of challenges going on, and we still have a lot of pieces of our system that we're doing in the old system because we haven't been able to fully transition to the new system. So they're working through, again, all the pilot districts, they're working through all those things, but they didn't have them ready-made out of the box that we could just use. And I don't know that there was that much of modification necessary for the counties to do.
Right, so the county doesn't have to deal with the state at all, right? They get the property taxes and sales taxes, and that's their
They
budget.
manage
That's
their own. Their
where
revenue is theirs. They collect it. They can use it. We get revenue from, or we get funds from different sources, and just being able to bring all that information in and report back out.
So to say, unless Madam Chair has something you want to say right now?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so to say that it's a similar situation, that based on what you just said would not necessarily be the case, even though it's the same system.
Correct.
Okay, because I want this defined, because that's something that has been said, multiple times, that, oh, we got these people that's been through this and they can come over and help. Well, they really can help if in fact what their merger only, as Madam Chair pointed out, had less items to merge than we do. And they're a single source, whereas we are multi-source.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Houlihan, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, we've talked with county staff multiple times about this issue, and I understand that it can be frustrating, but we're at the mercy of a vendor and at the state, and we have different ways that we have to operate that the county doesn't. So while we are appreciative of the offering of assistance, and we'll certainly take it up when we can, the fact remains that these two, the methods of transferring systems is just a little bit different for a number of factors. But as soon as we are able to produce the reports, we certainly will, and provide that to the board and the state, to the county.
Mr. Price was asking about something. Is there something, I worked at a bank and our system went down and we had to hand do all the transactions. Is there something that we can kind of just give them as a basic outline? Nothing maybe as detailed as those reports, but something to say, here's how we're looking kind of here, just so that there's some sense of physical passing of information, so that once the system totally gets online, then we can go through a more fulfilled methodology. But right now, is there anything that we can do that we can do from finance to just give some sense of where we are to them to kind of cover? Maybe we can get with them and find out, what do you exactly need? What would be a bridge to carry us over until full reporting can occur?
I mean, I would say that my level of frustration is probably greater than theirs right now because I am having that challenge. Again, we spoke with the vendor and our school business modernization team at DPI yesterday, gave them the ticket numbers. I'm hoping that really because of the volume of data and it not pulling in the information, I mean, I'll see if there's something that we can piece together that I have confidence in sharing at this point. But
And Shauna, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that even the years before we were going through this merger, between the months of May and October, we have not historically provided any reports because of the closing of one fiscal year and the opening of the next fiscal year and all that has to be done on the financial end. So we're also in that middle of the window, or the beginning of the window, where historically between those months, the county doesn't receive anything. So I just wanted to make that point, unless I'm wrong, Shauna, on that.
no, that's correct. And that's why my response to Mr. Williams was our goal is to be able to pick back up in October, because that would normally be the first report that they would receive.
And I forwarded that email that you sent to Commissioner Williams to the full board, so they have copies of that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That, yeah, okay. Next up is the CIP funding balances.
Yeah, so I know there was some discussion previously about capital balances by year. This has been requested to be shared back to county staff. So I wanted to at least provide this as information for you all and the full board, as I will be sharing this with them as an update. So if you'll see, like the county, I've got two different kind of columns. I've got the county, what they submitted, and then where our current contracts and commitments are.
So the county has this. Have
No,
they
I
had
have
any?
not given. After we're done today, I will send this to Beverly.
Okay. So the bond project. So we still have $700,000 left over in the bond projects, correct?
Yes,
So-
but remember transportation, they're going to be bidding the paving at transportation, and that's.
And we're
not
going to
happening.
use that.
Mhm.
So while it says reconciled balance, these projects can still be going on, right?
Correct.
Yes. And we have been using funds from prior years that were left over for some bids that were higher than what our budget was, correct? But we can't do it between buckets. So the county requires us to have an ADA bucket, a building systems bucket, roofing, safety, what else? Expansion. And we can't move money between those buckets so we can only use them. So let's say we had a roofing project that's over budget, but we don't have anything left in the roofing budget from 2 years ago. We'd have to go to the county and ask them to use money from a different bucket to use it for this, correct?
Correct. If you wanted to move between those categories, we would go in and ask them to make those adjustments.
So in order to zero out some of this stuff, like back in 18, we would have to go in front of the county and ask them to move it.
Right. I have met with, actually Colin and I met with Dave and Danny last week to discuss some of this and try to look at what we've got. I think at this point, we do have, some additional discussion in how we're going to move forward now that we have a little better understanding as well. We've been through a lot of transition with our CIP funding over the years. We've gone through having, 75 to 80 accounts by project, by school, by category. So, in some conversation with county staff and with Dave and Danny, I think we are all on the same page and we'll be able to move forward with ensuring that these funds are not lingering over any period of time. Normal would be 3 years, when you're rolling into the next year of funding.
Any other questions with that? So the whole thing was about $39 million sitting around, but at the end of this, it's 23 million, but a lot of that is coming from fiscal year 21 and 22,
Correct.
which we're still working through projects there.
Right.
Okay.
And again, there's going to be some of those other categories or years or whatever that they've got things in the works, but they do a lot of bidding right now so they can get ready for the summer.
So Commissioner Rape told me that we were now allowed to move money without going to the county. Is that the truth? That's what he told me.
Again, I had some detailed discussion with Beverly last week about it. And, within the categories you can use, if you have to go between categories, between years, that would require a request. So we can talk about maybe what that looks like because of when they meet and when we meet and the timing of some of this. We may be able to do it something similar like amendments and transfers potentially. Just looking at once it goes to facilities because it's after us or something. So we definitely come up with a process so that we can keep it moving.
Because some of our bids are coming in over what our budget was given the market right now. And I think the county is even having that issue with the new library. So I would think they could understand if we need to do that. So that would be great if we could come up with some sort of system to get this done.
Yeah, and that was part of our discussion as well.
Good, good. Anybody else have any question? Nope. Okay. Our next meeting is on the June 28th, and I need a motion to adjourn if we don't have any other questions.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
just wanted to know, Mr. Moore, did you have anything to add before we leave concerning anything?
I do not. Thank you, Reverend Bench. Sean has handled all the school nutrition stuff very well. And I think the discussion we had with Dave and Danny last week about the CIP was a good first step in moving where we need to move. So.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, that's it for me.
Okay.
I so move motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.